Picture a shuttered factory, rusting, silent, forgotten. A bankrupt Kraft Foods yogurt plant in upstate New York, abandoned and collecting dust. Nobody wanted it. Nobody except one man. Hamdi Ulukaya was a Kurdish immigrant from a tiny Turkish village who could barely afford his rent. He took out a small business loan. He bought that crumbling factory for $700,000. Everyone thought he was out of his mind. His accountant told him not to do it. But Hamdi had something no Wall Street veteran could replicate. A taste memory from home that America had never experienced. 12 years later, that forgotten factory had become Chobani, a $13.7 billion empire. It single-handedly changed what America eats for breakfast. The boy who once herded sheep in the mountains of eastern Turkey had conquered the American table. Nestled in the rugged highlands of eastern Turkey, the village of Erzincan sits where the land meets the sky in ancient silence. This was where Hamdi Ulukaya was born, into a Kurdish family whose hands had worked the earth for generations. His father herded sheep across the rocky hillsides, reading the land the way others read books. His mother rose before dawn to strain yogurt through cloth, coaxing thick, tangy treasure from fresh milk. There were no boardrooms here. No venture capital, no MBA programs, only the slow, sacred rhythm of animals, seasons, and craft. Hamdi grew up learning that food was not just sustenance. It was identity, memory, and love made edible. But even as a boy, Hamdi felt the pull of something larger. He was curious in a way the village couldn't contain. A Kurdish kid in a marginalized corner of Turkey, carrying a hunger that had nothing to do with food. Eastern Turkey in the early 1990s was a world apart from the one Hamdi Ulukaya was about to enter. He was a Kurdish man, a member of a people long marginalized within their own country. Opportunity for someone like him had a ceiling, and Hamdi could see it clearly. So in the early 1990s, he made a decision that would cost him everything familiar. He left behind his family's pastures, his mother's kitchen, and the ancient rhythms of village life. He boarded a plane to New York City with little money and almost no English. The risk was enormous, the certainty was zero. But staying felt like a slower kind of disappearing. He wasn't just chasing a dream, he was refusing a fate. That single act of courage, boarding that flight, set in motion a chain of events that would one day feed millions. New York in the 1990s was a city that didn't wait for anyone. Hamdi Ulukaya arrived with barely enough money to survive, speaking fragmented English in a world that moved at a pace he hadn't imagined. The isolation settled in quietly, a slow heavyweight that no one warns you about. He was far from his family, far from the mountains of eastern Turkey, far from everything familiar. Every morning he walked the aisles of American supermarkets searching for something that felt like home. What he found instead was yogurt. Thin, watery, cloyingly sweet. Nothing like the thick, tangy, hand-strained yogurt his mother made in their village kitchen. It was a small thing. But small things carry enormous grief when you are alone. That daily disappointment became a quiet obsession. Not just a longing for taste, but a longing for identity, for belonging. Then, in 2005, a piece of junk mail changed everything. A flyer arrived at Hamdi's small office, advertising a shuttered Kraft Foods yogurt plant in upstate New York, available for sale. Most people would have thrown it away. Hamdi drove 4 hours to see it. The factory sat hollow and cold, machinery rusting, workers long gone. But Hamdi didn't see abandonment. He saw possibility. Against every instinct of conventional wisdom, he applied for a small business administration loan and bought the dormant plant for $700,000. He then called back to Turkey, summoning a master cheesemaker who understood the ancient craft of strained yogurt. For 2 full years, they worked in near silence, perfecting a recipe rooted in centuries of tradition. The factory that America had discarded slowly came back to life. In 2007, Chobani launched. The boy from a Kurdish dairy village had just introduced America to the yogurt it never knew it was missing. When Chobani hit store shelves in 2007, America had never tasted anything quite like it. Rich, thick, protein-packed, it was not just a new product, it was a revelation. Within 2 years, Chobani became the best-selling yogurt brand in the United States. Within 5, it had captured over 20% of the entire American yogurt market, a category that barely existed before Hamdi walked into that abandoned factory. Chobani grew from $0 to $1 billion in annual revenue faster than almost any consumer food company in history. Hamdi's personal fortune reached $13.7 billion. The boy who once herded sheep in eastern Turkey became one of the 300 wealthiest people on earth. But Hamdi refused to let wealth be the whole story. He hired thousands of refugees at his plants in New York and Idaho. He gave long-term employees equity stakes in the company, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. A Kurdish immigrant had not just built an empire. He had built a model for what business could be. Hamdi Ulukaya did not arrive in America with connections, capital, or a blueprint. He arrived with a memory, the taste of yogurt made by hand in a Kurdish village in eastern Turkey. That memory became a $13.7 billion company. If you are watching this as an immigrant, hear this clearly. The traditions you carry are not outdated. The flavors, the values, the ways of doing things your homeland taught you, the world has not tasted them yet. Your accent is not your obstacle. Your origin is not your ceiling. The very thing that made you feel different is the thing that could make you irreplaceable. Hamdi did not erase where he came from to succeed. He bottled it. He put it on every supermarket shelf in America. Your story is still being written. Do not let anyone tell you which chapter you belong in.